In a world full of evil, is Spawn even capable of doing good? I discuss this and more on today's episode. Welcome back to another episode of Around the Weird, a booktube channel where I talk about all the unusual and out of the ordinary literature that I've found in my travels. And today I want to continue to explore a comic series that I've been talking about. One that is about hell and angels and superheroes. I am referring to the Spawn Compendium, one by Todd McFarlane, which was published in 1992, and I am focusing today on issues 21 through 30. I've been talking about Todd McFarlane as I've been going along. I don't need to go into that great of detail. Again, please refer to my first video about the issues 1 through 10 for more detail, to find out more information about him. And I've been going through this series, exploring it 10 issues at a time. It's been a lot of fun. I thought I'd be bereft, or I wouldn't have as much to talk about as I thought I would, but McFarlane provides a lot of meat to focus on in this series, and it's been quite a fun read. So if you haven't read the Spawn series, maybe it's a good time to get into it. There you could read the Compendium, although I think you could probably also find a couple issues elsewhere, maybe at your local comic shop. But without further ado, let's talk about issues 21 to 30. I will do a summary, a little bit of analysis, and we'll move on from there. So issues 11 through 20 continue to focus on Spawn. The mafia is still fighting Spawn as he goes along, unhappy that he's interfering in their operations. And the mafia, much like Wynn from the Omni Security Agency of the United States, suspects that Terry might play a role in this, because everything kind of points to Spawn or Al Simmons, who is dead, but Terry has the same kind of security clearance. And the mafia brings back Overkill, who Spawn had destroyed previously, who is now hunting Terry. Meanwhile, Sam and Twitch, two police officers, are also hunting Spawn because he is... they're trying to arrest him because he killed Billy Kincaid, and they're kind of mad that they were under investigation because they were closely pursuing Billy in the process. Spawn ends up saving Terry and fighting Overkill, who Twitch manages to shoot a bullet into his ear, which reprograms him, and Overkill goes off to do some other thing. And then Spawn saves Terry again from the mafia, who try to run him over. And then Spawn realizes that he kind of has to make it clear whose turf this is, whose city this belongs to. And so he writes graffiti on the walls using his magical abilities, which makes everyone more aware that a hero named Spawn is out there. And then in a further effort to get people to back off investigating Terry, Spawn reveals that he has blackmail on Agent Wynn, on the mafia, on the police chief who's investigating the case, and that gets them to back off. And then Spawn comes across a vengeful demon who has a beef with the mafia, and Spawn gives that blackmail to the mafia. The demon. I don't know what that demon exactly wants. We don't really see him come back, at least in these issues. And then Spawn comes across a guy who's in need of help because the courts took away his child because he doesn't have a lot of money. The guy asks Spawn for help, and Spawn says no, and that guy later goes and kills himself, which Spawn feels responsible for. And then Spawn is sort of briefly kidnapped by Gabrielle, who is one of the angels who is taking over because she doesn't like Angela. And Gabrielle says that Spawn must choose a side because there is about to be a big war that's going to take place. And then a short while later, there is another anti-hero type person who calls himself the Curse, who believes he's doing God's bidding. The Curse kills Spawn, or just knocks him out or something like that. But Spawn fights back and then sort of holds him hostage while he tries to figure out what the Curse wants. And at this point, Wanda begins searching for Spawn because Terry is aware of Spawn's existence. She doesn't know that he's Al. But she wants to thank him for helping Terry and figure out more about what Spawn wants. And she manages to find him, but she's pursued by a group of terrifying men who Spawn fights off. And she also sees the curse being sort of held against his will. And she becomes terrified of Spawn and is just like, thank you, but I can't be around you, and leaves, which upsets Spawn because, again, he feels rejected by the woman that he loved. There is then an Angela miniseries. McFarlane is writing a lot of miniseries focusing on specific characters to get backstory or a between the scenes kind of thing. We don't really know what happens in the Angela miniseries apart from what Spawn tells us, which is that he sleeps with Angela and one of the other angels kills, or like there's a sort of civil war going on with the angels. So that's all happening as well. And then after that, Spawn is dumped in Alabama, like just yeeted out of heaven of sorts. And Spawn runs into a child who is being abused by his father. Spawn steps in and speaks to the man, and then like he carves like "don't abuse children" into his skin and says that if he doesn't abuse this child for like a full month, it'll go away. But when Andy gets home later, his father is kind of waiting for him to beat him up some more, and Andy's brother has to shoot Andy's father, who's also a police officer, and so Spawn's actions had unintended consequences there. And then as he's trying to get home, he's in the rural Alabama countryside, and he comes across Klan members, which is significant because Spawn is a black man, originally at least. But the Klan is trying to get black landowners to give up their land because they're racist. And Spawn takes care of a few of them and then hides their bodies, and the courts try to prosecute another black man who was nearby, but they can't because there were no bodies. And we later find out that the judge is a member of the Klan too, and the judge tries to attack that other black man, but Spawn shows up, and to make the judge pay for his actions, he makes him black using his magic, which is a bit absurd. And then the other Klan members show up and lynch that man once Spawn leaves, even though he was trying to assert that he wasn't actually a black man. And that seems to be where those issues ends there. In terms of analysis, there is a fair bit to talk about with these issues. The theme that it seems McFarlane has been writing about through this entire series so far, it continues with that of good versus evil. You see a bit more explored there. In this one, Spawn who is sort of like a Shades of Grey type character, is urged to pick a side by Gabriel. Malebolgia is also kind of urging him to pick a side, saying that he's going to join Hell's army sooner or later. But both sides are kind of heinous because the angels aren't so noble, heaven is not so noble, and of course the demons are the demons. They're both kind of causing pain in some sort of way. And this kind of just amounts to turf wars when you think about it, because they both want to fight for land, fight for souls, and claim them, and this is going to be part of a huge war. And later we see like when Spawn goes into like Heaven's headquarters, they say like, oh, we had a deal that you wouldn't show up in this area. So it seems like it's really amounting to some petty turf wars. Like we want to proclaim the biblical war as something great and fantastic, but at its heart this might be what it is, which McFarlane is kind of sort of taking maybe an honest look at that war, and showing that it's maybe no different than these street wars that's going on around Spawn at the time. And then Wen is a very clear example of unchallenged evil in this story. A terrifying, awful human being who is described as a bit of a dictator. He knows that Terry isn't really the traitor who's been stealing all this sort of thing, doing what Spawn's been doing, but he still blames Terry just because he doesn't want to appear to be wrong, and somebody needs to be to blame, and so it might as well be Terry. And Wynn just seems like a really awful human being. So the question then that you must ask is, why have the angels been using Wynn as the Redeemer, as he will later be known, or anti-Spawn? If this is who the angels want, and this man isn't that great, does that suggest that the angels themselves aren't that great, that they're a bit flawed, or that heaven isn't as pure as it wants you to believe? There's a lot of questions there, which nobody's really asking, but I think kind of McFarlane is throwing that out there as a way to get you to sort of question motives in this story. But for Spawn, fighting evil is not so easy. There's blurred lines, of course, and Spawn has to be that agent of gray, fighting those shades of gray. But even when you see something completely evil, Spawn's actions do not necessarily mean that good things will come out as a result. We see Malebolgia laughing that he's kind of set traps. He argued that in the near the first couple of volumes, but now he's arguing that as well, or he's laughing as he's telling other demons about it in issues 11 or 21 through 30, where he specifically notes you have a bunch of different outcomes. Either Spawn does nothing and allows evil to fester and it kind of corrupts him. He can fight on the side of good, but that just ends up sending people to hell, as we see with the Klan here, or he can reserve his power and only fight significant battles, in which case evil is going to take over that way too. So Spawn has all these choices, but none of them are really directly leading to good. And even when he does do good acts, such as saving Andy from the abuse or fighting the Klan, the actions still produce death and potential soldiers in Hell's army, because killing Andy's dad just sends him to hell, and killing the Klan member sends them to hell. He's not actually being a force for good. He's just causing more violence, which is unfortunate. And Spawn isn't completely aware of that. He's making a bunch of mistakes, but he thinks he's doing some good, and maybe he is. Maybe he's saving a few people from death, but he's not. His actions aren't as noble or good as one would make them to believe. There's no real way to get out of this trap of falling into what Malebolgia wants. Again, I think I've said this already, but using the tools of evil doesn't necessarily mean that you're going to overcome evil. And as I mentioned before, Spawn is making mistakes in his actions that end up harming those around him. Seeing all the violence that Spawn engages in turns Wanda away, doesn't make him feel good as a result of that. And a lot of what his actions put Terry in danger in the first place. So he's a very flawed hero in that regard. And then of course, people are dying as a result, either because of directly of his actions, or because of his clumsy heroism, or because of him deciding, that other people need to take a stand for themselves, and they don't have the ability to do that because they're too vulnerable. As we saw with the man who begged Spawn for help getting his children back, Spawn was just that's your own responsibility. I don't have to fix everything. But that person couldn't have fixed everything, and I don't think Spawn could have fixed anything too, but his callous behavior at times can result in other people getting hurt, and he's not as noble a hero, and it is interesting to see a hero, again, who has to kind of work at being good, rather than for someone for whom being good comes so naturally. It's also interesting to see Spawn's battle wounds throughout this series. Spawn's design changes as his wounds accumulate. It's very interesting to see McFarlane's art and the other artists who contributed. Spawn at one point, gets a face wound and he has to get stitches from one of the homeless people. And in later volume or issues, we see those stitches still there. Spawn is becoming worse. I wouldn't say decaying, but the wounds are growing. And it really shows that Spawn is kind of existing on borrowed time. You see the timer in the stories counting down as he uses more of his power, but even the even the wounds, like a gaping hole in his chest from an attack by the curse, or like the face wound that he had. Like, it's showing that everything that Spawn is doing is affecting him in some capacity, and the fights that he's engaging in are actually having an effect on him too. So is Spawn going to be able to do what he's trying to accomplish? Well, these growing wounds and the more powerful enemies suggest that it's going to be increasingly difficult as time goes on. Now, I will say the one thing that I don't like as I see more of the series continue is you're missing a lot of the story if you don't read everything. There's a Violator series, there's a Sam and Twitch series, there's a Youngblood series, and there's an Angela miniseries, as well as a couple of other miniseries scattered throughout. And you miss a lot if you don't read everything, but that is quite a bit to read and to consume. And I think it negatively affects my enjoyment of the series, because again, like, I don't know if you can easily find a Violator, the Violator series still, or even the Angela miniseries. It might have been a one-off and then it didn't get published after that. I think I'm lucky that I found this compendium as well as the subsequent compendiums, because this kind of feels like a niche that wasn't given wider popularity like Marvel or DC. Although Spawn is still popular to this day. But I do think putting the story into so many different places puts a lot of expectations on the readers, especially those who might not have a lot of money, and people end up missing large parts of the story as a result. Anyway, those are my thoughts on issues 21 to 30. Pretty good series, but again, some problems are arising as it pertains to like putting the story in multiple locations, and then there's mentions of it throughout the series, because there's like little footnotes scattered throughout, but you still miss a lot in that way. But it's still a very fun read. Spawn is kind of an iconic character, and the overarching story is very compelling. So I definitely recommend this series to you if you are looking for something fun to get into. But yeah, if you read this before, you simply want to continue to comment on what I've talked about here, let me know in the comments below. I would love to hear from you. Otherwise, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe so that more people can find out about this series or this author if they don't already know. And until then, I wish you the best of luck in your weird and angel fighting travels. Farewell.